Morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Optimus Prime. So I think you guys we all had fun night yesterday, right? So I was being told to do this whiteboarding yesterday. So I think you can see the agenda. I'm given like 45 minutes for this session, right? So the objective of this whiteboarding session, yesterday, if the sales team in the encapsula session itself heard that I actually wanted to do the whiteboard, but it couldn't be done. But seems like it happened now, right? So they're going to do like, I'm just going to write, and then they're going to do some projection on the screen on both sides so that you guys can see, right? So the primary objective of this session is to, 45 minutes is very short, right? So is to go through an overview of what Imperva solution is, right? And on a simple nutshell, right, how you can actually pitch the story to your customers, basically, because all our partners here, right? So, and with that pitch to your customers, get them excited, get them, let them feel that this is something that's being required for them in their environment itself. And then with that, you can bring your distributor in, you can bring the sales, Imperva sales in, and do further stuff, right, with them from there, right? So I'm going to start off with 45 minutes, it's very short, right? So I think a lot of people, you in ASEAN seen, I think Henry has seen my whiteboarding so many times until I think sitting here is a torture for him already, right? So okay, so usually I'll start off with talking about Imperva, right? Because when anybody who wants to buy a security solution, they want to make sure that it comes from a reputable company, right? It has been established for a while. It's not too small that today he buys, tomorrow, the next month he got buy off by a bigger company, right? So I'll talk about Imperva as a whole, right? IMPV, just in case you guys don't know that we are NASDAQ listed, right? So some history, I think that was the question that the Wonder Woman host asked yesterday. When was Imperva set up, right? It's not 1992, it's actually year 2002, right? So that's where we set up. And in case any you all don't know, we were the first web application firewall and the first database firewall, right? At that point in time, we were the first one, right? And 15 years later, we are still the only leader in Gartner Magic Quadrant for WAF itself. We are NASDAQ listed, right? So this is very sensitive. I usually don't want to talk too much about financials, but we can verbally mention we are about 1.7 billion market cap. We are not small, right? So we've got about 1,000 employees worldwide. Asia Pacific HQ is actually in Singapore, right? So that's what I'll talk about the company. And then I'll talk about some support structure. So, because when people buy a product, they want to see what's the support structure, right? So we always tell the customer that support structure-wise, the first tier is always the reseller, the partners that are selling to the customer directly, contractually, and then with distributor as a second tier to support the partner. And very importantly, the Imperva support, we run 3 shifts. It depends on 3 locations basically, right? So we run out of US, Tel Aviv, and then right there in Singapore itself, right? So if I'm in Singapore, of course, Singapore customers have got a lot of privilege because we've got a team of about 15 to 18 people just to do support for Encapsula and SecureSphere right in Singapore, right? So this will be the first introduction the short one that I'll talk about for Imperva as a company, right? So that's one. So it's very clear for people, they know that we are established, right? So then, after which I will talk about SecureSphere and Encapsula, right? So, SecureSphere. SecureSphere is actually our product name, right? So within SecureSphere itself, we actually have 3 solutions. One is WAF, Web Application Firewall. The other one is DBF, Database Firewall, but of course if you put it in span mode or mirror mode, it's actually database auditing and monitoring right there. So it's the same thing. One is inline, one is span mode. The other one is File Firewall, FFW or FAM, File Auditing and Monitoring. So these are the 3 products that we have to cover: web, DB, and file, right? So on one SecureSphere platform. Why SecureSphere? sphere is like a round, right? It's because we cover whatever that's inside, right? You can see that we don't actually focus a lot on perimeter, which is during yesterday encapsulator session we talk about a lot of customers are becoming very mature. They have actually deployed a lot of perimeter security, firewall, upgraded to next generation firewall, IPS, upgraded to next generation IPS, APT, AV, proxy, a lot of stuff, right, on the perimeter. And they are shifting inwards to protect their core, which is their web, their app and DB, right? So we protect the inner part of it, covering the web and the DB and the file, right? So that's what we do. And I will usually also start off with a very simple diagram where sales and technical, there's a lot of technical people down here, right? So internet coming through, there is like a router going through, right? Simple diagram. And there's a lot of perimeter security like firewall, IPS, AV, proxy, blue code proxy or whatever, right? So, and then all the way in, there's a lot of web servers, WS, web servers. That's on the back end, right? So typically in front, your customer will have a load balancer or a switch. So where WAF is placed, right? So this gives a very good perspective, right? So WAF is placed very near to the web servers because it's supposed to protect the web servers, right? Web application servers, right? So you always hear of this term called web app DB, right? So web application is always connected to the database, DB. Okay? And then of course DB is always network linked to a DB switch, server farm switch, right? And then if you deploy it in DBF, which is inline, you can actually use another different color. Okay, so you can actually place the box inline here, which is database, firewall, right, inline, or you can span out, is what usually we deploy, span out a port and do database auditing and monitoring, right? So maybe it's just use red color as well. WAF. So this WAF, we call it gateway, secure sphere gateway, database firewall is gateway, DAM is a gateway, all the gateway and this gateway all connected centrally to a centralized management system called MX, right? So this gives you a very good, your customer a very good simple perspective of where we are actually exactly in the network architecture itself. WAF placed very near to the web servers to protect the web application servers, and DBF inline or DAM is the same thing. It's just span and then all these gateway connected centrally to the centralized management system, right? So where does file firewall and FAN comes in? Just replace DB with file, and then it's a file switch basically. So it's the same thing. FFW, file firewall, and FAN, right? It's the same thing. So then I'll proceed on to actually talk about the requirements, like spur out the requirements from the customer point of view, right? So DBF itself, database is actually what we call structured data. Structured data. And then file is actually unstructured data. So what is structured and what is unstructured, right? So structured is like, I'm sure you guys heard of like Oracle, MS SQL, right? DB2, even like cloud, like Cloudera, big data, MongoDB, all these, like even AS400 mainframe, all these are structured data, right? Why it's called structured is because it's got tables, it's got rows, right? That's where it stores. The application always talks to the database, store the information inside the database. And most of the time, big bankings, big enterprises, they store their data inside the database and sensitive data inside there as well, right? That's called structured data, right? What is unstructured data? Unstructured data is things like SharePoint, right? I'm sure you all heard of SharePoint. And then the Windows file sharing system. Right? Anything that runs on NFS. Oh, sorry. So basically it's Windows file sharing. I don't want to go into this kind of terms. So Windows file sharing system is unstructured data, right? So I'm sure you all heard a lot about WannaCry and all this, right? Ransomware stuff. Ransomware problem is actually a file problem. Right, so yesterday Drew was actually mentioning about firewall, file protection. So that's actually the thing, ransomware, right? So so from there, the customer or yourself actually would have a good perspective of, hey, what does Imperva do for secure speed itself, right? So with the same box itself, by turning on licenses, you can actually deploy all the three functionality: web, DB, and file, right? So any questions? Okay. So after which, right, we will start to talk about the requirement, why there is a requirement for each of the area like WAF or DB, right? So let's talk about WAF first. WAF, simple stuff, right? So a lot of common questions that the customer may ask you is that, hey, I really got a firewall and I already upgraded to the next generation firewall, right? Next generation IPS and things like that. Why do I still need a WAF, right? So who actually has this question being asked to you by your customer before? No? No? Good? Yes, 1, 2. Okay, so the others? Okay. Good. So, just in case your customer asks you this question, right? Basically, when we talk about this firewall and the IPS versus WAF, right? I want to talk about OSI layer stack. Who actually know what is OSI layer stack? Like layer 1, 2, 3, 4, layer 7 application. Who knows? More hands? More hands? Okay, maybe in the morning, everybody a bit more passive, right? So I like to talk about that because that's the basics of everything, right? So when you talk about OSI layer stack, OSI layer, right? It's actually the basics of everything that's in the internet right now that's running, right? So you always hear about layer 1, layer 2, deploy layer 2, deploy layer 3, right? So this is what it is all about. Layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like layer 7 is the application layer, right? So Daniel, my SC, he taught me this, which is please do not trust salesperson at all, right? So that's how we remember. Physical is not me, right? So data, network, transport, session, presentation, and application. You don't have to remember everything, but this is just to let you know that what's the differentiator, right? So layer 1 to layer 7. Back in the good old days where internet just began, when people talk about security, they will talk about firewall, right? So what does firewall does? Firewall does this very important stuff called access control. I control you to actually access from this IP to that IP using what port to actually communicate with each other. I control you, right? So hackers like say that, hey, you start to restrict me coming in from this IP or this segment, right? So I start to play with protocol anomalies, right? So that's where birth of IPS, right? So IPS is very focused on CVE, vulnerability, right? So even now, you talk about access control wise for firewall. Next generation firewall came up with very sexy term like application visibility, user visibility or application control, right? It's still pretty much evolved around access control, right? So IPS, firewall, and all these are pretty much covering from layer 3 to layer 5, right? That's where they cover. So when it comes to layer 7, web itself is actually on layer 7, which is this layer itself. They don't actually really cover, right? So last time, previously I was from Sourcefire Cisco, right? So tons of IPS, and there is actually this web application signatures inside there, protection signatures inside there. And customer asked me, hey, you know what? I don't have a WAF. Can I actually turn on the web application signatures? I usually will tell the customer, better don't turn on, right? Why? Because the false positive rate is very high. False positive, right? So what is called false positive? I think you guys always heard of false negative, false positive, and things like that, right? So false positive simply just means that blocking off the correct traffic. Blocking off the correct traffic. You want to keep false positive as low as possible, right? So we never will want to recommend to turn on firewall IPS because application layer is very, very different from a network layer, right? So then why they need a WAF, purposefully built WAF, right? Because WAF first is very concentrated just on layer 7, right? There's a few reasons. Number 1, layer 7, right? So number 2, okay, WAF is actually purposefully built to cover OWASP top 10, Open Web Application Security Project. There's a lot of web attack, right? Yesterday, we were talking about 96% of the web application has got vulnerabilities, right? Once you have got vulnerabilities, you've got different types of attacks that can come in. OWASP top 10, just in case this sounds alien to some of you, I'm sure you heard of like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, right? So all these are part of the OWASP top 10, right? So there's many types of application layer attacks, right? So OWASP is the Open Web Application Security Project. They actually, you can Google search, they actually list down the top 10 attacks, and we as a WOF cover 10 out of 10 of OWASP top 10, right? And Firewall IPS doesn't do so, it just cover about 3 or 4, right? So, and it doesn't even turn on signatures, right? And very important thing is that WOF does this thing called the profiling. Profiling, right? So profiling as in each and every of the page, get page, post page, put page that goes through the WOF going to your web application server, the WOF profile. Why? Why is this so important, right? Because each and every of the web page are designed differently, right? You go to each and every of the URL is different, right? So network is pretty much very standard, right? But when it comes to web page, it's very different, each and every of them. So you got to make sure that you profile each and every of the page. Once you profile already, you know that this particular page accepts 2 input parameter, you profile and then you do blocking, right? So basically you can do custom protection. And why to do so is because you want to make sure that you want to reduce the false positive rate as low as possible. So all WOF does profiling, and that's the key difference between a WOF and a network devices, which is firewall IPS. And then what's so great about Imperva, right? So once you talk about all this, your customer is convinced, hey, you know what, I need a WOF, right? And then they'll say, hey, you know, what do you recommend? Imperva WOF. Why? So one very key point why we are so strong is because of this thing called the dynamic profiling. It's our patent technology, right? So what is this all about, right? So I'll just give you an example. So imagine there's a page, this particular page, and then it's a post page, right? It accepts. I just try to put it in more layman terms so that you understand what is it all about, right? So user ID, password. Okay. So once you, because it's a web application firewall, it's a firewall, right? So once you profile for a period of time, you actually goes into blocking, right? You must block, right? Because it's firewall. So once these 2 parameters is being profiled by any WOFs, they will go into block mode. Okay? And for whatever reasons, the application team make changes and they usually don't inform the security team, right? And then they actually add on a third field, maybe called customer code. Okay? So when this thing comes into any other WOFs and they see that, hey, how come there is a third field that's added on here? Okay, it's not what I profiled before. I will block it. And this is not good. This is false positive, right? And it's not good for the customer. So what we do, we can actually do profile and block at the same time. All the others only do all block, right? So why this is very powerful is that when this traffic comes through and we learn that there's 2 fields and the third field that's added on, we actually see where it's coming in from, like the IP reputation that is coming in from, number 1. We also see that whether is it a bot or a human that is coming in, right? We differentiate between them. And then we make use of things like the community defense. We have got the number 1 market share in the world. So we make, and community sharing is very, very powerful. We make use of what we see probably in the US, in the Europe, applied in APAC, right? So that's where also things like 0-day comes in as well, before we actually hit signature, right? So by going through this process, we see that, hey, this particular traffic that's coming through is actually good, right? I allow the traffic to go through, and I can do 2-step automatically adding on to the profile list itself, or I can manually alert the security team that there's a new thing that's added on, parameter that's added on, and they can manually add on, right? By doing so, we keep false positive rate the lowest in the market right now, right? And that's very, very important. Imagine this is just for 1 page. For thousands of pages, if you're going to do this false positive, it's going to be a hell of a nightmare for your customer. And this helps the customer a lot when it comes to the WOF deployment itself. Number 1, dynamic profiling. My time is running very short. I'm going to skip to the next topic. Okay? Any question on the WAF? Because WAF is our bread and butter, right? So we cannot lose deal on WAF, right? So when we go into POC and it's head to head with any competitor, we should bring up our WAF functionality very clearly, right? So sometimes when we sell something, right, to customer, it's about the impression. If you give the customer a first impression that you are the best, they somehow will stick on to it, and when the POC comes in, you prove that you are really very good, and things will go on smoothly, right? Although price, it depends on sales, how we're going to do it, right? So, but technically you must have a win first in order to make sure that they'll throw an RFP that is your tender specs, right? Okay. So I'll go on to database. Database is very key. In fact, almost half of our revenue come from database security, and I really urge everyone to sell database security because WAF, Encapsula, all this, everyone has been selling, but I think not all has been very focused on selling database. And why so, right? You see, if you are a hacker, do you think that hacker would be interested to actually come in and hack the web application server and make sure that the website goes down? They are not interested, to be very frank. If I'm a hacker, I'm not interested to get your website down, right? Because it doesn't give me financial benefit, right? So why I want to hack through your website is because web app DB, right, is always connected to database. What I want is your database data. Data equals to money for me. This is the crown jewel that they actually want to go for, your data, right? So typically, to get your, I came from network security background as well, and before, when I joined Imperva, I was like thinking, what the hell is database security, right? So, like, I've been selling a lot of firewall, IPS and everything. What's data security? So, that's also a mindset that security people may have, your customer may have about database security. Why so? It's because database is like a maze for them, right? It's like a maze. Why? For instance, one simple command, I say select this particular data point from this particular table in which database itself. This particular simple command, right, in Oracle, in MS SQL, in DB2 are all different. The commands are different, right? The create command in the whole Oracle is a whole list of create command list itself, right? So it's an alien for them, right? So when something is, it's a human nature, right? When you are not familiar with something, do you think you want to touch it? You don't want to touch it. And don't even talk about protecting it, right? Because you don't even know about the thing, right? So it makes it very difficult for us to penetrate security team to actually want to sell database security, right? Makes sense, right? So unless there's audit compliance issue that they are facing, then they are forced to do it, okay? So typically I will go a bit high level. If there's a way they can touch the CIO level or even the CISO level, that means they're higher level, then you start asking them a few questions to spur their thoughts, thinking why they need this, right? So first of all, probably you ask them is that, number one, do you have sensitive data in your environment? They say, yeah, sure, I'm a bank, right? So I'm a bank, of course I have very sensitive information inside my environment itself. So are you doing anything to protect your database itself? Which I guess is resided in all the data, is sensitive data is actually residing in the database itself. They say, they may pause, because they may not have done anything, right? Then they will say that, hey, no, I may have done some DLP stuff, but DLP is not really looking at your SQL traffic that's going through, right? It's not exactly. And then I may turn on native auditing on the database itself, but I cannot turn on full because it's got performance impact, right? So you realize that they start to think about, hey, there is actually nothing that I've been doing in protecting my crown jewel, which is here, right? So just quote you a story, right? So we were up north, because I'm based in Singapore, we were up north in Malaysia, one of the largest telco, right? We were there doing a POC. And what spurs that POC was that the CEO was having a coffee talk with another CEO, right? This very big telco. And this CEO was telling Nazri, hey Nazri, I heard that your subscriber information is in the black market for sale, right? Nazri, of course, is CEO shocked, right? Because it's a reputation for them, right? It's a bad reputation for them, right? You go back And he asked Vice, hey Vice, what are you doing? I mean, how come there is such a kind of incident or rumor that's happening on the ground outside, right? So Vice, before we put in the box here like that to span out the traffic into the damn box, right? We actually asked Vice a few questions. Number one is that, hey, how many database you have in your environment, right? He says, I've got 100 databases, Oracle, MS SQL, and DB2, 3 flavors. And we plug in the box, we see that, wait, how come there's 102 database? 2 rogue database was being set up, doing replication of the production database. He don't know, right? Number one. Then second shocking thing that Daniel found out was that this particular application, you see application, there's always an app ID. This app ID is talking to this DB, always do update table, and every day do a few hundred records. One fine day, this particular app ID was being compromised and do a select star. Select means copy. Select star and copy a few thousand records out of the database itself. They don't know. Second. Then the third most shocking thing that we saw was that somebody from home, DBA, VPN straight into the database, bypassing 3 layers of firewall, and do a select star, copying a few thousand records from there. They don't know. Right? So, from this incident, we see that actually nobody is really protecting the crown jewel here, right? So I actually use a very simple example always to explain to people, right? I met a CIO from one of the largest banks here in Thailand. He gave me half an hour, directly, right? So, and he's got 500 IT staff under him. And then I asked Kundarati, I say, you know, Kundarati, what's most important for you in your environment? And he's a very interesting old man, right? I mean, he's got a lot of grandchildren. He actually went to the board there and drew a circle for me. And he drew cake, his cake. I said, cake in Thailand is what is cake, right? So, and he said data. And then he drew like SaaS, SaaS, IaaS, web, DB, and file. So, I say, what you're trying to protect the cake against, right? Then he starts to draw some dots, ants, right? He say, why ants? Right? I'm very curious about the story, right? So, because ants like to eat sweet stuff, right? So they always like to go and eat the cake, right? So, I don't care whether the ants comes from outside in, or the ants come from inside, because there can be careless or compromised users, right? To come and eat my cake. As long as it touches my cake, I want to make sure that I have something to protect my cake, right? So with this as a basis, right, we talk about what we do simply for database firewall itself, right? Number one, when you plug in a box within within the customer environment itself, number one, you can see all the different types of databases that's within the environment itself. We learn the environment itself, right? We do baselining, okay? And then second, we can actually do sensitive information classification, right? So which sensitive information is actually in which database itself according to compliance standard, like SOX, like PCI, like ISO standard. So different types of compliance standard we actually classify for your customers automatically, right? And then third, user rights management. So which users have what rights to which sensitive information in which database itself? Which application have what rights to which sensitive information in which database itself? Once you start to know 1, 2, 3, right? Hey, I start to know how my cake look like, right? Because a lot of people, just like I mentioned, right, don't dare to touch the cake because the cake is an alien for them, right? Correct? So once I know 1, 2, and 3, hey, I know my cake is a chocolate cake, right? I know my cake is actually round, it's not square, right? So what the security guys need to focus is just on the security policy, this one, around the cake itself. They don't have to touch the actual database query or SQL query that goes through day in, day out, things like that. We actually do baselining for them. So the same dynamic profiling function that we have on the WAF is actually applied on the database firewall. Okay, with dynamic profiling, once we do baseline, we know what is actually, we actually know what is a normal scenario, and when there's abnormal scenario that happens, we will know, right? So that makes a lot of sense for your customer as well, right? Baselining, which is dynamic profiling, right? So with this wise, when they focus on security policy, they just need to focus on things like, for instance, Singapore healthcare. Their very, very key use case that they have is that the doctors and nurses, which is the king of healthcare, and they need to access the very sensitive patient information from, from everywhere, right? They must access within the office, back at home, even when vacation, using their iPad or whatever, they must access something, right? They say that if I don't access the information, I cannot treat the patient, they will die, right? So once they say this kind of statement, you're going to give them access, right? So what the security team try to do is that they are very concerned about excessive download of data, right? So they actually start to craft out a policy, putting us in, and then craft out a policy saying that if there is any, because human behavior, right, you cannot download more than maybe 1,000 plus records per day, right? It's too much. So they say anything more than 5,000 records out of their very critical patients records sensitive table itself or database itself, I want to block it, basically. You can do such things. So such things are very simple to understand, very use case driven, and very security policies driven. And with this itself, you're helping the security team and helping the DB team as well. Okay? So, and of course, sometimes depends on the customer environment itself. You may not only sell to security team, right? As I mentioned just now, if security feels that this is something that is very too difficult for them, they don't want to touch it. And we were with like one of the largest universities in Singapore. The DBA team was the one to come in to do this, right? And in fact, just now healthcare again, when we actually first went in, Daniel and myself went in for the presentation, there's a bunch of security and DB team itself. And the DB teams, those aunties are very, very kind, very nice people, right? So they said, oh, Garen, Daniel, I mean, this is fantastic, man. Why? Because, we asked them why. They said that because this can finally prove I'm innocent, I'm clean, right? Why? Because auditor, KPMG, every time comes in every year to do audit, and they are the super DBA, super admin user, have rights to all the different databases within the environment itself. And one simple question from auditor is that how do you prove that you are clean? How do you prove that you are not doing excessive download of data, right? There's no way they can prove, because they don't turn on native auditing on the database itself. Because native auditing on database itself, once they turn on, they actually drop the performance by half, right? They cannot turn on, and there's no way they can do it. And her reply to the auditor is that, you know what, if I want to do something bad to the company, I would have done that many years ago. I'm 20 years with the company already, but auditor will not take that kind of story, right? Correct. So with this itself, it actually can prove everything for them. And just in case you guys don't know, right, within our database firewall solution itself, we actually have a database vulnerability assessment as well. We have DB vulnerability assessment, or sometimes people like to call it vulnerability scanning, but I don't like to say the word scanning. It scares people, right? So according to CIS standard and DISA standard, right? So same thing, healthcare, they were actually doing a lot of DB vulnerability assessment using CIS standard, and they could write scripting themselves. And now it's Oracle 13, version 13 already, right? So each type of the new version that come out, they got to update the thing themselves, right? So within our database firewall solution itself, we actually have built in the vulnerability assessment tool, which is free for the customer to use. So it actually helps coming from another perspective, not always to try to screen the database administrator or DBA. We are not thinking that they are the colleague, right, of the security team. So we are not thinking that they are bad people. But we cannot actually, there's always careless users. There's always compromised users, right? So there's always this type of users. They are good, right? But they cannot prevent themselves from being compromised. So when they hold a super user admin account, they can access a lot of stuff from there. So we are trying to making sure that to protect the company interest, and then of course to focus on the use case as well. Right? Any question? You are very quiet. I hope that it gives you some perspective. So we are trying to spur the thoughts of either the security team or the DBA's team, but the best is going up to the top. If the top thinks that this is good, they will come down, then whoever necessary will come in and take care of the project. Right? We leave it to them, right? Alright, so I think I'll talk about encapsula, right? So I've got 11 more minutes. So encapsula, I mean, I've done quite extensive with the sales team yesterday, right? So, but I think we need to touch on that. So secures, when I always begin, I'll talk about, we have got an on-prem solution, which is SecureSphere, and then we've got a cloud solution, which is encapsula, right? And then it's always good to just start off with things like, what's the full functionality of encapsula, right? DDoS protection, cloud wall, load balancing, and CDN, right? Okay, so if you don't know how to explain the cloud WAF differences, between the cloud WAF differences and the on-prem WAF differences, then sometimes you may want to take it out and don't mention about cloud WAF, right? Depends on who you're going to pitch to, right? So, so this is the full functionality. And what is encapsula all about, right? It's very, very simple. You have a user or hacker coming in to the origin server. So, for instance, if you hit www.abc.com, once you hit enter in your browser, it goes to the DNS itself, maybe 1.1.1, because every origin public-facing web servers, they have actually got a public IP address, right? It goes straight. So how encapsula comes in? So with encapsula in place, you just need to update the DNS, which is the C name and the A records itself. Okay, just update, no downtime involved. So once this is updated inside there, so whoever will hit abc.com, it will go to encapsula, maybe 2.2.2.2, right? Example. So all traffic that hits abc.com will now be routed through encap. So when it goes through encap, we will be able to do protection, right? So all the web attacks that comes in, all the DDoS attacks that comes in, we will be able to scrub it, throw it into rubbish bin, and then we will let the clean traffic go through. That's what we do. It's very simple, right? So this is very, very good for a very fast deployment. Customer that has got, I've got 10 more minutes, that has got various web servers all around the world, or they have got some web servers that is actually, application servers that's actually on the AWS, Azure, or on-prem. So wherever it is, no problem. They can just onboard the encapsula to actually do the protection. Okay, so it's a simple concept. So, so when you sell this thing, right, you target a few types of customers, right? First type of customers that you can target is customer that has got already from the telco clean pipe solution, clean pipe. Right, they already subscribe to a clean pipe. Means that they, first of all, they already know that DDoS is a problem. Okay? They already acknowledge that. And then you don't have to convince them that DDoS is a problem, but they already subscribe to clean pipe. And they know that clean pipe is not that good because it only covers layer 3, layer 4, and then very low DDoS protection, maybe 1 gig to 4 gig at most, because it's very expensive, right? And no visibility. You can ask them, do you actually know, you subscribe to clean pipe for so long, do you have actually got any visibility on what kind of DDoS actually comes to your website itself or your infrastructure itself? They don't have visibility, right? Most of the time. So this is the first type of customer that you can target against, right? So let's talk about this first type first, right? So how you actually going to convince them that encapsula is the way to go to replace your existing clean pipe solution? Okay. So first of all, when we talk about this, right, we must talk about the problem, right? So now the DDoS problem is very big, right? As we all know that DDoS now is no longer the good old days of like 1 gig of DDoS, 4 gig of DDoS and things like that. So we've seen like last year trends of 200 gig in Q1, 440 gig in Q2, Q3 about 650, and 1 tera of comes on security about 1000 gig in Q4. That's very, very big, right? So I always quote example, right? So imagine now this is your origin server, and then this is the pipe to the internet, which is here, right? This particular pipe is to the internet is actually here, right? So Thailand, right? So I always talk about the red shirt, yellow shirt riot, right? Okay, imagine there's a riot and there's one person standing down at the door down there, right? 1 gig of DDoS. You push the person away, you can get out, no problem. That's where the clean pipe can settle, right? But right now, you're talking about 1,000 people standing at the door down there. Your pipe here is choked all your services in the back is down. You can never get out this door because 1,000 people are standing down there. And that's how serious it is now for DDoS attacks, right? Because it's becoming very, very big. And the traditional way of how we actually protect the DDoS by clean pipe solution, 1 gig, 4 gig of DDoS, doesn't work anymore. Doesn't work anymore because it's just too small to protect, right? So, and when the 1,000 people is at your doorstep, you cannot stop them anymore, right? So what you want to do here, you want to make sure that this 1,000 people doesn't actually gather straight here, right? They gather from different places, right? So maybe 300 may come from Phuket Airport, right? Another 300 come from Patong Beach there, and then come from Karon Beach, right? 300 coming from there. So all gather and come to here, then 1,000, correct? So what you want to do, you want to make sure that you stop them straight at the source at Phuket International Airport, Patong Beach, and Karon Beach before they even reach here, right? So that's what we're trying to do. So in the whole internet world itself, we have got the US, always the #1 culprit, and then of course we've got Russia, we've got China, always fight for #2 position, right? So usually, and of course South Korea. So Korea always join the gang now for #2 position, right? And then we've got South America, EMEA, and of course Southeast Asia. So what we're trying to do here is that by using encapsular, when there is a DDoS attack that comes from US to Bangkok maybe, and then from Korea coming to Thailand and China coming to Thailand, I want to stop the DDoS right here where the source is coming in from, and then let the clean traffic comes through. I don't want the DDoS to traverse all the way to Thailand. Then it is too late, right? Why it is too late? Because the whole international pipe that Thailand has is about 3 gig plus. Singapore is about 3 gig plus, right? India, I'm sure there's a lot more. But you're talking about what, 100 gig of DDoS coming at the doorstep of Thailand international pipe? The telco, if you ask any telco, right? Singapore telco or Thailand telco, any telco out there, you ask them, hey, you know what? I'm a customer. I subscribe to your clean pipe service right now. And then when there's 100 gig of DDoS comes to me, what happened? What will you do? They will black hole you. They will black hole you. Right? Black hole means that, go route you to nowhere basically. So once a black hole, you die basically, right? So your whole network goes down. Everything goes down. So you ask the telco, why you want to do that? I'm your subscriber, right? For DDoS protection, right? Is it because I rather you one die than everybody die? Because the whole network will go down, right? But your customer don't want that, right? Yesterday I was talking about it. You want to, I survive and everybody survive, correct? So what is the solution that can make sure that your customer survive and everybody survive is actually encapsular. Why? Because we actually have global scrubbing center all over the world, and it is 34 scrubbing centers right now. Okay, this is our key #1 differentiator. We have 34 scrubbing center right now, and it is actually 4 times more than our nearest competitor, which only have 8 scrubbing center. And what we're trying to do here is to ensure that, because I now sell you this concept to block off right at the source where it's coming in from, correct? But then if I tell you that within APAC itself, right, I only has got 1 scrubbing center in Singapore, then I'm trying to bluff you, right? Because if there's only 1 scrubbing center in Singapore, you always must have the traffic from China, attack traffic coming from China, go to Singapore before going to Thailand, scrubbing first. Australia, it comes, and then go to Singapore, going to Thailand. So it defeats the purpose. It goes back to the same old stuff of this telco doing the clean pipe service, right? So in order to ensure that this story will fly, right, is valid, I must have enough scrubbing center worldwide, right? So that I have the effectiveness of blocking off the DDoS straight at the source where it's coming in from. That's why we really invest a lot of money, a lot of resources, trying to build up the scrubbing center through the years, and we've got 4 times more than any competitor out there, 34 scrubbing center, right? And then we've got very big masses as well. You heard about 4 Tbps, right? 4 tera of pipe. So the biggest that we've seen for DDoS attack is about 1 tera, right? So we have got 4 times more than what we've seen in the market right now. Our masses are very big, right? So that's why we are very, very effective when it comes to DDoS protection. Okay, and to do a trial with your customer, once you go through all these, the customer is very interested and say, hey, you want to do a trial? It's very, very easy. Your sales, SEs, distributor side, we can actually just provision an account for your customer. They just update the CNAME and the DNS, the A record on the DNS itself. Once updated, they see that there's traffic coming through from encapsula, there it goes. You're protected already. Right? Once they are going inside the GUI itself, unfortunately my time is running out, they can actually see a lot of stuff like not only the security attacks traffic, they also can see proxy or what we call access traffic itself. So that means different types of, like MediaCorp is a big users, I mean one of the largest media in Singapore, they're using us. And then they developed an application for, particularly only for mobile browsers like Safari and things like that. But they realized that from onboarding encapsula, they saw that, hey, you know how come a lot of Facebook browsers are coming in? So with that kind of access or proxy information, they actually changed the way how they craft out the application itself. There's a lot of usage within that itself. Okay, so besides security, I'm sure your customer will ask you another question is that, hey, you know what? Now instead of the source, the client hitting straight to the origin, you put one hop in between, definitely there's latency, right? Right, that actually, because there's another hop in between, right? So how we actually counter that latency by having security and availability and access at the same time, we actually have this thing called CDN, Content Delivery Network. So what it does is that, if let's say now I have a web server hosted here in Thailand, and then if there's a user that's serving this particular website itself, because I have a scrubbing center down here and also a CDN, I can serve the content out to the user right here. If they are serving from Korea or India or things like that, I can serve out to the user here. So it brings the user experience better, right, with the CDN. And from all the trials that we've seen so far, with Encapsula on board, they actually fasten up the whole user experience, right, by having Encapsula. Okay? So to be very frank, my time is up. Right? I've got a lot to talk about. I mean, if there's a whiteboard, right? So, but I hope the session is useful for you guys. Any question that you may have? The recap was, we are #1 in the world, Gartner Magic Quadrant. There's only 141516. There's only one leader, which is Imperva. Very importantly, dynamic profiling is our key, right? We protect layer 7, where else firewall and IPS very much focus on layer 3, layer 5. We protect 10 out of 10 of OWASP top 10. When it comes to DB itself, when self-security team, they don't have to worry about what's inside here, which is an alien for them. We actually do baselining for them on the DB environment, which application has got which access to the DB, which DBA user has got access to the DB. We understand the whole SQL language down here, and then we classify all the sensitive information for them, what users have what rights, and then with this baselining, they can actually focus just on the security policy. Fantastic story. And with this in place, they will, I miss our very important point, they don't have to turn on native auditing. No need to turn on native auditing. Right. I would like to quote this example so that you all can use this example. I mean, very last, just 1 more minute, right? Barclays Bank. It's a very, very big bank. I mean, I'm sure a lot of guys, we watch English Premier League, right? Barclays Premier League, right? So it's a very big customers of ours, right? So in Singapore, when they actually because Singapore actually have got MAS, which is Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is the one that controls all the FSI or banks, this kind of trading guidelines, what kind of security policies you're going to put in place and things like that. So they actually has a few clauses inside there to monitor all the audit logs that goes through. That means who actually access the DB and everything like that, it must be audited, basically. So it's a big thing. And then what they did was that they actually turned on native auditing, and you can imagine the performance impact is actually half of it. So what they did was that they actually bump up the server specs by more than double, and then they pay more money to Oracle, because Oracle, there's a lot of licenses involved. They pay tons of money to do that piece of thing, right? So after which they brought in Imperva, okay? And then when we put in here, just spanning out as a DAM itself, they straight away turn off native auditing, and then with a DAM, they actually saved a lot of money. They were so happy with the whole thing, they actually brought this whole use case back to UK, and then in the UK side, they start to, at the HQ, deploy worldwide. And they have actually got a white paper with us, right? So if you are interested, we can send you the white paper. It actually talk about a big financial institution, but that's actually Barclays, right? So talk about the whole information inside there. So it actually helps the customer to save a lot of money to meet compliance, auditing, and security itself on the database, right? I really urge you all to sell more database. It's a very, very interesting area. and we virtually don't have any competitor in this area, right? Okay, I've talked too much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.